Hi, I'm Tom Fox. When you're looking for diamonds, look to the diamond expert.
Signaling victory in his around-the-world trip. And I hope one of these moments we'll see Gina Yeager popping her head up there, too, as a matter of fact.
Unless she's getting 40 winks.
All this ceremony, incidentally, Gary, I believe these are NASA cameras, at least some of them are. They have kindly lent the Voyager folks their cameras to record this great moment.
There we go. There are hoots and howls coming from the spectators here. People are just, they can't believe that this has happened. I think, in a real sense, this is one of the last fly-it-by-the-seat-of-your-pants kind of efforts. These are, in a sense, Jack, these are aviation daredevils, aren't they?
They really are. This is the last major milestone of flight, and in every way it's equivalent to what the Wrights and Lindbergh and Chuck Yeager and the other pioneers have done.
Two Air Force ambulances have just arrived here at Plainside, and both...
What's he holding up, Gary? What's he holding up?
What are they holding up? Jack, can you see that?
Yes.
From our vantage point, it's a little tough.
I think he just held up his hat. He has a cowboy hat.
that was his cowboy hat, Peter.
No, I saw the cowboy hat, but he handed up some papers there, which may have been his flight log. Did he keep a flight log?
Oh, he definitely did keep a flight log.
Yes, there's a flight log, and there's also a barograph. The barograph is the recording instrument that makes the flight official.
And I assume he had to hand that to the flight official for certification.
Yes.
That barograph is something like a small barometer which proves to those people who will check the officialness of this flight that the aircraft did not descend to sea level at any point. And, of course, you see him put on his cowboy hat. It's a hat he couldn't wear in that aircraft. That looks like his passport.
I was mentioning, Peter, that two ambulances are standing by right in front of the aircraft, and they will both be taken to the base hospital for a checkup.
Somewhat inelegant means for them to get out of the cockpit, Peter and Gary, as they set those ladders up. This is not what we're used to seeing.
I think they're going to need some help, from what we gather. They're now setting up some stretchers, I think.
Could you move to the right a little bit more?
I can see correctly. The plan is for them to have perhaps 2 hours at the hospital, but Bert Rutan, Dick's brother, says that his gut feeling is that Dick won't be able to spend 2 hours in the hospital. He'll want to come out and talk to us as soon as possible. So it might be only a short period of a very brief checkup, and if Dick is up to it, we're liable to hear from him a lot sooner than 2 hours from now.
Just in case people joined us late, Gary, let me remind them again, there he is. Gina Yeager is not related to Chuck Yeager, the test pilot.
Two very happy people. Whoa.
And there's a handshake for Dick Rutan as he takes off his harness there, wearing his cowboy hat.
That's Dr. George Utila, the flight surgeon.
He is moving very slowly, Gary.
He sure is. He must be a little stiff, too, I would think. And there's Gina. They look remarkable for 9 days in the air.
George, you're on live television here. Do you have anything you want to say to America as you pull in?
It's really good to be back.
Dick Rutan, by the way, Peter.
Gary, let's listen to him.
The question is, how does one feel after spending 9 days in an airplane?
Like a shower. Like a shower. I'm going to sit here for a while, Doc.
Damn you. You're ready to.
Yeah.
I'm surprised. How do you feel?
Hey, baby.
Not easy at all? Beautiful. Oh, neat. You guys did it.
Well, I don't know whether he's saying he wants to sit there because he wants to enjoy
Was there any doubt that you'd make it?
this moment.
At what point? What would you say was maybe the low point or your most fearful time?
Well, over Africa, when we decided that due to some type of anomaly with the airplane, that we didn't even have enough fuel to go across the Atlantic Ocean. We spent about a half a day and feeling pretty bad about that. But then we figured out where all the fuel was hiding. Then we felt better.
Where did you find it?
Well, it had a backflow problem, and it wasn't indicated properly. We really had the fuel, but we didn't know it. And felt pretty bad at that time.
How did everything hold up for you? The engines, the fuel?
They're all turning. they're all turning and we made it. I would have liked to have a little more fuel at the end, but...
Yeah, I was going to say, if you had anything to do differently, what do you think it would be?
Put it pressurized, make the cabin a lot bigger, and go at high altitude.
I'd like to go at high altitude, he says, because that low altitude flight gave them such a rough ride. Let's see if we can hear from Gina as reporters on the ground ask them questions as they sit there, perhaps trying to get their ground legs back again.
You'll have to pardon me, I want to sit here for a while. I don't know if I can stand up or not.
Feel free. If there's is there anything you want to say, this is your chance. They're all watching. They're all listening to you.
Keep those muscles going in your legs.
Oh, they're getting advice.
No, it's really great to be here. I'm sure... Well, I'm really overwhelmed with all the people.
Your legs feel numb, Dick?
Yeah, they do. I was wondering about it, whether I'm going to be able to get a ride to get home tonight or not. I guess not.
Tim Johnson up in Boston, he keeps referring to his legs, and Gina, who looks a little more relaxed with her legs up on the ladder there. What's your best guess?
Well, I'm impressed, Peter. I think they both look remarkably good. They certainly are alert and with it in obvious fashion. I'll just make this quick comment. They talked about that terrible moment off the coast of Africa. Dr. Jutila told me last night that at that time when they were in touch with him, they both broke down in tears after they finally were able to get away from that terrible moment. So in the midst of all of their obviously courageous physical condition, they also had some very emotional moments.
Well, now he's going to try it.
He just finished saying his legs were numb. That was a very fast recovery.
Yeah, just grab his shoulder here.
I'm okay, just understand.
They do not, of course, have the advantage that the astronauts had of weightlessness and the room in a shuttle to do a kind of daily exercise regimen.
You mean besides a long shower and a shave?
Besides a long
Got a passion for showers as well.
I think I can understand that. Notice that Gina hasn't come down yet. I guess they're giving her a chance to get her muscles back in shape.
They're all quite private people, particularly Jeannie Yeager, who has sat there, as she has on so many other occasions, quite prepared to let Dick do the talking. But while the attention is on him, bear in mind that she holds 8 world records for flight distance and for speed. She's one of the co-founders of the aircraft company, which put this great adventure together.
I know it was going to be 6 years. I don't know if it was going to be 100.
Bob Gordon, fellow F-100 pilot. You did it on private money. That's what knocks me out. Glad I could be here for the Congress to welcome you back. Good.
You go. That's what 3 people can do, right?
And they may just be a little embarrassed with all of this personal attention. Here comes Gina down the ladder now. Looking, dare we say it, better than Dick did.
Extraordinary. You know, Peter, when the astronauts land, they are wobbly for a different reason. They have the different circulation problems. They don't have that cramped situation which you described. We are certainly used to seeing people getting out of aircraft or spacecraft and having a little trouble getting their ground legs again. These folks seem to be handling it quite well.
Okay. Your feet cold?
They've also hardly slept. On top of everything else, they've hardly slept. They're overwhelmed. All these people are there. They've just accomplished this extraordinary feat. They've hardly had any sleep over the last 9 days. Their health is apparently okay.
Well, there's no doubt by seeing the look on her face, just how good she, Jeannie Yeager, feels about all of this. Bert Rutan, the designer, was telling us last night that on various occasions throughout this flight, he would get very specific communications from them that they were doing exactly the things they were supposed to be doing to monitor their aircraft. And then on some days they seemed totally out of it altogether, and he used to worry occasionally because they only got about 4 hours sleep a day. And on some occasions they simply were not able to comprehend some of the instructions or some of the advice they were getting from Mission Control. In fact, they once went 1 whole day without checking the oil in their rear engine, which caused some anxiety on the ground. They managed to fix it, of course, as all this is testimony to. And perhaps one of the first things Dick wanted to have a look at was the end of that giant wing, which he scraped so badly along the tarmac strip at Edwards Air Force Base on takeoff. You'll recall he did a circle and dropped off some of the winglets that were on the plane. But like any pilot who has concluded a flight, particularly one as long as this, the very first thing you want to see is how did your aircraft stand up to it.
I don't think there's a pilot alive who gets out of his plane and doesn't take a look at it. A long tradition.
Let's take off, shall we, Dick?
Dick's mother and father are there. Gina's mother and her stepmother are there. Mother and her stepfather are there. Dick's daughter is there. Bert Rutan at some point will be together with his brother and with Gina. But there you have, under that glorious western sky at Edwards Air Base, there's almost a miniature view of what we have become accustomed to when the shuttle lands. A couple of Air Force ambulances being made available to take them for a checkup by what I euphemistically call the flight surgeon. But in fact, as Tim Johnson has reminded us up in Boston, is in fact the family doctor of somebody who has joined this flight. It really is quite extraordinary.
Oh, it is. It does look like a shuttle landing in a way, but you really have to be struck by the fact that at the end of this extraordinary year in terms of American space achievements and tragedy, that this was pulled off by these two pilots and this relatively small group of people. There was no band there to greet them. At least we didn't see or hear one. There were no speeches, wasn't that nice. There was no contamination problem. These were two people coming back from an extraordinary flight.
You were reminding me about, before the broadcast morning, about the other Voyager, which began the year, really.
Almost exactly 1 year ago, January of 1986. Voyager 2, the spacecraft, of course, is the 1,200-pound little unmanned spacecraft, 8.5 years old, that went and visited the planet Uranus, nearly 2 billion miles away. That was an achievement that the space agency pulled off, totally out of the hat. Nobody thought they were going to do it. They went and did that. For the year to have started with that and ended with this is really quite ironic. Obviously, in the middle, the very horrible explosion of the Challenger spacecraft and the death of 7 astronauts, and virtually the halt to the American manned space program for a very long time. But this brings it back somehow.
There's no doubt, I think, in many people's mind that this flight today is going to give American flight a new lift, a new spirit that, as you point out with Challenger, it lost for some considerable period of time. Let's take, I don't know if you're as crazy about looking at this airplane as we are, but let's take a look at the landing again, just as she comes down over the dry lake bed at Edwards Air Force Base and makes this touchdown a little more than 9 days after they took off from this same Air Force Base in Southern California to make their way out across the Pacific, down across Southeast Asia, over across India, back up across Africa, and then across the Atlantic. There was the touchdown, and as you heard Dick Rutan say just a little while ago, after he came out of their tiny 7-foot by 2-foot cockpit, when they were over Africa at one point, they got the terribly bad news that they didn't think they were going to have enough fuel to bring it home. They were in a position to parachute, believe it or not. They both have experience as parachutists. They were in a position, though they never wanted to have to do it, to land on the water. That was the one emergency thing they had with them, was the capability to land on the water, or at least parachute into the water if need be, and be there until they were possibly rescued. Let's go back to Edwards Air Force Base and Gary Shepard. Gary, give us a mood feeling out there now.
I would say, Peter, the mood here is one of elation, and Jack Norris, you could back me up. How about the Voyager ground crew? Aren't they pretty happy about all this?
Oh, they certainly are. And of course, most of the people in the ground crew are the ones who helped build the airplane, who have been aboard for years. So it's a happy crew this morning.
And I think you're feeling pretty relieved that the touchdown went so flawlessly, no?
We certainly are. It was an adventure every day on that mission, and we were all working 20 hours a day, so we're just as happy.
Dick Rutan has just gotten into the ambulance, and he'll be going off for his medical checkup along with Gina. One thing I meant to point out earlier, Peter, is that we've learned from Jack that Dick Rutan was at the controls about 85% of the time for that flight. So that means he didn't get much sleep at all, did he? No,
he was sleeping 2 to 3 to 4 hours a night, intermittently, so it was tough duty.
Gary, I'd like you to...
Indeed.
Gary, can you ask Jack a question for me? We've seen the design of this cockpit with one of them sitting and one lying down. How on earth do they change places so that Gina can fly?
Well, Gina is pretty tiny, so it really helps. It's a tight squeeze, but they do it very well. The cockpit was really designed around the two special people that just made this wonderful flight.
So they, is it a matter of he has to get out of the cockpit before, obviously, she can sit down, and it's on autopilot at that moment, I would think.
Yes, this airplane has a full-time autopilot, and Gina crunches up to the front, and Dick slides back, Gina slides over. So it's quite a
Jack,
maneuver.
let me, if I may, interrupt you to give you a message, which I'm sure Dick and Gina are going to get very shortly, but if you see them before this message gets to them, you might want to pass it on. The President has the following to say. It is magnificent, absolutely magnificent. Gina Yeager and Dick Rutan's courage and refusal to give up have thrilled and impressed us all. They're a living example of American pioneerism at its best. And the President says, welcome home, as, of course, does the whole country. You probably won't be able to remember it all, but if you see them, tell them the President's happy.
We certainly will. The President's right. It is magnificent in every way.
A final thought from you, Gary Shefter.
My final thought, Peter, is that this is one of the most wonderful things that has happened in this country in a long time. And especially in the world of aviation, it takes us back to the old pioneering days. You can't help but think of Charles Lindbergh and things that he did, and now they're being done in 1986.
Okay, Gary, thanks very much. And Jack Norris, thank you for joining us this morning when you could have been in mission control. Lynn, final thought?
Well, you know, we've given so much credit to the wonderful machines in the space agency and in our aviation. I think the credit on this one goes to the people. I say to Dick Rutan and Gina Yeager, hats off, absolutely.
Good, thanks very much, Lynn Sure, and thanks also to Tim Johnson, our medical editor up in Boston. Don't very often get to see Tim surprised by someone's physical condition. Dick Rutan and Gina Yeager home, the Voyager home, after going around the world non-stop and without refueling. On World News Tonight, we'll have more pictures and hopefully Dick Rutan and Gina Yeager's assessment of their own flight. Thanks for joining us. Hope you found it as exciting. I'm Peter Jennings in New York. Have a good day.
This has been a special report from ABC News, New York. We now resume our regular program schedule.